the Senate Joint Memorial 104, which is pushing for suppressors to be regulated like guns.
Where we're going through and trying to legalize it so that suppressors can be legal for ownership and for hunting in all 50 states.
Well, the Arizona Senate has passed a bill to make it easier to own a gun silencer, more accurately called a suppressor.
The government is interfering with me being able to get a suppressor by delaying.
As suppressors illegal nationwide, just as they are in New Jersey.
But first on Fox, a new bill would make it easier to get silencers and suppressors for guns.
Some people call these a silencer, but how much silence are we really talking about?
Seizure of muzzle brakes. Picture this. You're minding your own business, checking the mail, and boom. There it is, a letter from the ATF, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. But it's not an invite to a barbecue, it's a warning notice about your muzzle brakes, those little doodads on your gun that help reduce recoil. Turns out, the ATF isn't too keen on them. So what's the deal? Well, it seems like the ATF has its sights set on 3 types of muzzle brakes, specifically the ones made by Lethal Eye. Now, Lethal Eye might sound like the name of a rock band, but it's actually a DBA for a company called KBC Capital LLC. Anyway, back to the point. The ATF isn't messing around. They're straight up seizing those muzzle brakes and giving folks like you and me a 30-day deadline to sort things out. Now, you might be wondering, why all the fuss? Apparently, these muzzle brakes aren't just your run-of-the-mill gun accessories. Nope. According to the ATF, they're classified as silencers. Yeah, you heard that right. Silencers. And we all know silencers are like the black sheep of the gun world, right? They're heavily regulated, and if you get caught with one without the proper paperwork, well, let's just say it ain't gonna end well.
The Senate Joint Memorial 104, which is pushing for suppressors to be regulated like guns.
For that reason, these things aren't oftentimes falling into the wrong hands.
State lawmakers are considering several changes to gun laws, including making these much easier to get.
Where we're going through and trying to legalize it so that suppressors can be legal for ownership and for hunting in all 50 states.
If it was a regular gunshot, we would have definitely known a lot sooner.
So what's the big rush to sort things out? Why can't we just kick back and deal with it later? Well, that's where the severe penalties come into play. If you don't take action within that 30-day window, you could be looking at some serious consequences. Think fines up to $100,000 and even a cozy little jail cell for up to 10 years. Yeah, not exactly the vacation spot we had in mind. So here's the bottom line. If you got one of those warning letters, don't hit the panic button just yet. But you also don't want to stick your head in the sand and hope it all blows over. It's time to roll up those sleeves, make some calls, and figure out what the heck is going on with those muzzle brakes. Trust me, you don't want to mess around with the ATF. They mean business. Classification as silencers. Now let's talk about why the ATF is throwing around the silencer label like confetti at a parade. It all comes down to how these muzzle brakes are classified under the Gun Control Act. See, according to the ATF, these little gizmos fit the bill of what they consider to be silencers, not just your ordinary muzzle brakes. And why does that matter? Well, strap in because things are about to get legally complicated. Silencers aren't your average gun accessory. They're like the forbidden fruit of the firearms world, highly regulated and strictly monitored. If you're caught with one of these without proper authorization, you're in for a world of hurt.
Purchasing a suppressor for your firearm is not a speedy process. It can take months.
But not even the United States military relies on silencers to protect our soldiers' hearing.
Well, the Arizona Senate has passed a bill to make it easier to own a gun silencer, more accurately called a suppressor.
Makers of the silencers are the ones pushing state lawmakers to lift the ban, and they have found at least one supporter.
Is gaining some traction in Congress that would make it easier to buy gun silencers or suppressors for those weapons.
We're talking heavy fines that could make your bank account cry uncle, and don't even get me started on the possibility of some quality time behind bars. It's the kind of stuff that keeps even the most hardened gun enthusiasts up at night. So what's the takeaway here? Basically, the ATF isn't messing around when they slap that silencer label on these muzzle brakes. It's not just a matter of semantics, it's a whole legal can of worms that you don't want to open without a lawyer by your side. If you find yourself scratching your head over why the ATF is throwing around the S word, don't panic just yet. Take a deep breath, gather your thoughts, and maybe consider reaching out to someone who knows their way around firearm regulations. Trust me, it's better to be safe than sorry when it comes to navigating the murky waters of ATF classifications.
to the point where it's undetectable. What it does is it brings the report of the gun below the injury threshold.
Reduce the noise of a gunshot. They bring the noise down to safer levels from a hearing conservation perspective.
Fitted with a suppressor to kill 12 Americans in Virginia Beach.
The government is interfering with me being able to get a suppressor by delaying.
Confusion among clients. Now here's where things start to get really interesting. Well, maybe not in a good way. You're one of the folks who got that ominous letter from the ATF about your muzzle brakes. You tear open the envelope, read the words seizure and silencers, and your brain goes into full-on panic mode. But here's the kicker. You don't even remember buying those muzzle brakes in the first place. It's like a plot twist straight out of a mystery novel. Many clients are scratching their heads, wondering how in the world they ended up on the ATF's radar for something they don't even remember purchasing. It's like trying to solve a puzzle with half the pieces missing. To make matters worse, there's not a single picture or detail of these muzzle brakes to be found online. It's like they're the Loch Ness Monster of gun accessories, rumored to exist, but nobody's actually seen one. So you're left sitting there staring at that letter, wondering what the heck is going on and why these seemingly innocuous doodads are causing such a stir. And let's not forget the million-dollar question: why are these devices being classified as silencers in the first place?
Our military reserves silencers for stealth operations.
About safety. It's about hearing protection. It's a health issue, frankly, for me.
The State House still has to vote on the bill. 9 on your side's Craig Smith looked into how much difference a suppressor makes.
Automatic assassin goes in and silently deals death with a firearm. This simply reduces the noise so it...
Senator Tom Tillis says this is to protect people's hearing, but gun control groups, I'd imagine, are very much against this.
It's like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. Confusing, frustrating, and downright baffling. With all this uncertainty swirling around, it's no wonder folks are feeling a little lost in the weeds when it comes to the legality of these muzzle brakes. So, if you're one of the many scratching your head over this whole ordeal, take a deep breath. You're not alone in this confusion. But don't just sit back and hope for the best. Now's the time to roll up your sleeves, do some digging, and maybe even reach out to someone who can shed some light on this murky situation. After all, when it comes to navigating the tangled web of ATF regulations, a little clarity can go a long way. Manufacturer's compliance. All right, let's shine a spotlight on the mysterious figure lurking in the shadows of this whole ATF saga, the manufacturer. You know, the folks behind those elusive muzzle brakes that have everyone scratching their heads and checking their bank statements. It turns out they might just hold the key to unraveling this whole mystery. First things first, it's pretty clear that the manufacturer isn't exactly flying under the radar. They've caught the attention of the ATF, who seem to have a bone to pick with their muzzle brakes. And how do we know this? Well, those warning letters that landed in your mailbox. They're like a neon sign pointing straight at the manufacturer's doorstep. But here's where things get really interesting. It looks like the manufacturer might have been playing ball with the ATF all along. That's right, it's the old turning over the customer list trick. See, when the ATF comes knocking, asking for a little peek at who's been buying what, it's hard to say no. And it looks like the manufacturer might have caved under the pressure, handing over those precious customer lists faster than you can say Second Amendment. Now you might be thinking, why would the manufacturer throw us under the bus like that? Well, my friend, it's all about self-preservation. When the ATF comes knocking, you either cooperate or risk getting tangled up in a legal nightmare that makes your head spin.
How much louder is it without the silencer?
It's about 6 times louder without the silencer.
As suppressors, illegal nationwide, just as they are in New Jersey.
Gun enthusiasts hope lawmakers will pull the trigger and lift the ban on silencers.
And let's face it, the manufacturer probably isn't too keen on spending their days duking it out in court over some muzzle brakes. But here's the kicker. While the manufacturer might be playing nice with the ATF, they're not exactly winning any awards for their online presence. Nope, their website is like a ghost town, with nothing but a under construction sign plastered across the homepage. And don't even get me started on their social media accounts. They're about as active as a sloth on a Monday morning. So what does all this mean for us poor souls caught in the crossfire? Well, it means we're left scratching our heads, wondering how we got dragged into this mess in the first place. And with the manufacturer staying mum and their online presence about as helpful as a chocolate teapot, we're left to fend for ourselves in a sea of uncertainty. But hey, chin up, we're not alone in this. So if you're feeling a little lost in the wilderness of ATF regulations and manufacturer shenanigans, just remember, we're all in this together. And who knows, maybe, just maybe, we'll get to the bottom of this whole mess sooner than we think.
Are in place for a reason, but there are some that out there that really do say that hearing protection does need to be taken into consideration.
Mufflers on our vehicles is because they're incredibly loud. That output is incredibly loud. The muffler helps dampen that noise. The suppressor is the same way.
But first on Fox, a new bill would make it easier to get silencers and suppressors for guns.
Is you want people in the vicinity of gunfire to be able to hear the report of a firearm.
We can't pick and choose, and we have to follow the laws, but people don't understand.
Legal advice and recommendations. All right, folks, it's time to talk damage control. You've got a letter from the ATF burning a hole in your pocket, and you're feeling about as lost as a duck in the desert. But fear not, because we've got some nuggets of wisdom to help you navigate these choppy legal waters. First things first, if you're staring down the barrel of an ATF warning letter, it's time to call in the big guns, literally. That's right. I'm talking about legal counsel. Specifically, you'll want to reach out to a lawyer who knows their stuff when it comes to the Second Amendment.
We were reminded how dangerous silencers can be a few weeks ago.
It does not cause potential damage to your hearing, but it's not a silencer, it's a suppressor.
People with their hearing, it's a good thing, it's not a bad thing to have a suppressor on a rifle.
Ears of American soldiers in combat abroad, I say it's good enough to protect recreational gun owners.
Some people call these a silencer, but how much silencer are we really talking about?
These folks eat, sleep, and breathe firearm regulations, and they'll be your best bet for making sense of this whole mess. Now, we know what you're thinking. Lawyers, aren't they expensive? Yeah, they can be. But here's the thing. When you're facing down the ATF, you don't want to skimp on legal representation. Trust me, it's like trying to navigate a minefield blindfolded. You're going to want someone who knows where to step. That's all for this video, folks. See you next time.